This burrito is delicious, but it is filling.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher. I'm a professional educator and a professional artist, trying to bring you the absolute best in art historical content and videos that I can muster up.
Okay.
So as you can probably tell, I'm on the road again today, somewhere in between North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa, and we're in the midst of a move. And anytime that I move during a global pandemic, it gets me thinking.
If you had another brain at that loneliness, man.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so it's got me thinking about things that are similar and different. Living in Iowa the majority of my life and now moving to North Carolina, I'm thinking about these things that are similar, but also very, very different.
No shit.
That isn't completely different from the Parthenon and the Pantheon, two structures that couldn't be any more different in very different locations, but are very often confused with one another. So let's try to figure that one out a little bit. In the ancient world, the place of worship was a place, not a specific structure. But these specific structures were very influential and very important to the people living at this time. Both of these structures were intended and designed as temples. Now, both of these structures are ideal representations of their respective cultures. The designers of these structures place a lot of emphasis on creating ideal shapes and proportions within the structure. The first example of the ideal proportions can be seen in the columns of the Parthenon. The Greeks favored perfect rectangles and designed everything around ratios. In the Roman Pantheon, we see more geometric perfection, although the Roman era is very consumed with arches and spinning that arch 180 degrees to make a dome. The Pantheon's front is styled in a classic Greek fashion. It has a frieze, pediment, and columns. The Pantheon would borrow much of its exterior with its square portico from the Parthenon and specifically the Greeks' design of temples. Both of these structures use 8 columns to support the pediment. We definitely see the influence of the Greek architecture that it had on the Romans. Where it departs is in the proportion. The Pantheon's columns are much taller and wider than those found in the Parthenon. For years, I taught a trick on how to remember the country of origin of the Pantheon versus the Parthenon. When you break down the shape of these structures, the Parthenon is definitely a rectangle, and the Pantheon, oddly enough, is kind of in the shape of a frying pan. And so I have often told students to remember to keep the grease out of the pan. Then you can remember that the grease goes with the Parthenon, and Rome goes with the Pantheon, because we have to keep the grease out of the pan.
Well, thank you, pal.
What is it exactly that's so great about the Parthenon? In Athens, on top of the Acropolis or hilltop fortress, the idea of constructing the Parthenon came after Athens had held off Xerxes and wanted to construct a temple that illustrated visual perfection.
Embrace me as your king and as your god.
The Parthenon was built for the goddess Athena. The word Parthenos means virgin, as a reference to the goddess Athena. The Parthenon is a Doric temple supported in Ionic columns. The Ionic columns give the structure a feminine gender, which is appropriate for a temple to Athena.
Well, you certainly got my attention.
The Greeks absolutely loved and were infatuated with mathematics. Throughout the building, one can find a lot of a 9:4 ratio, as in with length to width, the width to height of the columns, space between columns to the diameter of the column, and so forth. But it also incorporates the golden ratio, a 1 to 1.6 ratio that is considered to be a mathematically perfect formula that is very pleasing to the human eye. And we also call that beauty to the eye aesthetics. Not only do we find this ratio throughout the structure of the Parthenon, but we find it throughout nature, like in the creation of a honeycomb, the bones in a human hand, the growth of a shell in the ocean, and on and on and on. The Parthenon is a two-cell chamber designed for multiple purposes. Of course, the primary purpose of the structure is to worship Athena.
Hey, look! A secret room!
But it was also used as the treasury to the Delinean League. The treasury and financial wealth of many countries would be protected. The statue of Athena, although very little information remains about her construction, was likely made of ivory and gold sheeting on top of a wooden armature. The post and lintel system was utilized in creating the Parthenon. Although the structure's white marble is absolutely beautiful, it never would have been left this way. The marble would have been painted with bright blue and red coloration and highly decorated.
I still think we ought to paint it.
In its prime, the Parthenon was used as a civic meeting area, art gallery, bank, library, and place of worship. Since its creation, it has been attacked, exploded, set on fire. It has served as a church, mosque, and Spartan military barracks. Its art has been looted, and it has survived earthquakes, air pollution, and poorly planned restoration techniques of the early 1900s. But it remained a temple to Athena until it was decreed that all pagan temples were to be closed in 435 AD.
What the happened to you, man? Your ass used to be beautiful.
In 1842, when Greece became independent, this area became a historical preserved area that was controlled by the government, and restoration has been continuous on this site since 1975.
You're driving along.
So what are those interesting features of the Pantheon? The Pantheon was built in Rome to celebrate all Roman gods. The Pantheon was originally constructed by Marcus Agrippa in 27 BC. However, the entire Pantheon was destroyed by a fire, and all that was left was the facade. And that was just kind of there until the Emperor Hadrian. Under the orders of Hadrian, the Parthenon was built to honor all gods. Pan meaning every, and Theos meaning God. Literally, every god. This is the only existing Greco-Roman structure that is not a reconstruction or a restoration. It's as it was in its original construction, without modern engineering. The building was eventually given to Pope Boniface IV in 609 AD and then converted to a Christian church. The front portico, with its 16 columns, leads you to the 25-foot tall bronze doors that weigh in at 40 tons of material.
That looks pretty good.
From the inside, one notices that the ceiling is a coffered dome that reduces the load but also adds an element of design. The ceiling contains 140 coffers created from poured concrete. The oculus at the top of the structure acts as a compression ring that allows the distribution of pressure all around the structure, and so the weight of the walls don't fall in, and the oculus at 27 foot in diameter would be the only light source necessary in this structure.
New shit has come to light, and shit, man.
At the ground, the wall of the Pantheon is at least 20 feet thick in some places. At the time, this was the largest dome ever constructed. And it would not be until Filippo Brunelleschi's dome in Florence during the Renaissance that this would be without that title, although it was always impressive. A ball 143 feet in diameter would fit perfectly inside the dome. The Pantheon is used creating several building materials including marble, granite, concrete, and brick. It is believed that poured concrete was used in creating much of the structure. Pop quiz.
What you doing, sucker?
What structure goes in Rome? What structure goes in Greece? The Pantheon and Parthenon may have their similarities and differences, but these two buildings are prime examples of how Greek architecture influenced Roman architecture, and in turn, how both of these societies have helped shape our world that we live in today.
I got my ears on and my eyes peeled.
Oh, wow, I love that story.
Hey, partner, you like country music? Garth Brooks, he's slamming right here.